past.
Honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land.
Respect those who have worked to build and develop our country.
And believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
United in our diversity.
We therefore, who are freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to
heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights.
Lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people and every citizen is equally protected by law.
Improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person.
Build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations.
The Constitution, the preamble of the Constitution. We're exploring how it harnesses our heritage, how it gives us a sense of belonging in a country. South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. I want to bring in constitutional lawyer now, Lwando Xaso, to explore this and other issues. Lwando, thank you very much indeed for your time. Happy Heritage Day.
Happy Heritage Day to you all. Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you, especially looking at this aspect of Heritage Day, the significance of the preamble of the South African Constitution as it relates to heritage. What's the link there?
You know, you cannot talk about this Constitution without talking about its history. You know, it is a historical document in itself. And I think that when you look behind the words of "we the people," they are not just the beginning of the preamble. They tell a story. They tell a story of a nation. They tell a story of a people, of how we arrived at that moment when we got our Constitution. And I think that the preamble to the Constitution is both, you know, a document that looks back and it also looks forward. It acknowledges the past. Actually, the past is its foundation. And it looks forward by articulating a vision that we can all work towards.
Yeah. And as you know, we can also find recourse in the Constitution, especially when we deal with social ills, especially when we deal with issues like discrimination, intolerance, racism, xenophobia, etc., etc. There's recourse in that Constitution. Do we know enough? Do you have a sense that South Africans know enough about this Constitution?
No, and I think that's why the Constitution Hill Trust actually, you know, undertook this project of the preamble with the Ndlovu Youth Choir, bringing it alive and setting it to music, because we're hoping that it's going to reach more people than the document does. And linked to the preamble is that tonight, Constitution Hill and the Constitution Hill Trust are launching an online exhibition which speaks to the making of the South African Constitution. It tells its story, but also on that website is an element, it's a component which will explain to people how the Constitution works, because we recognize not everyone has, you know, a copy of the Constitution in their shirt pocket. You know, they're not easily available. And we're hoping by going digital, by using music and using other creative ways, that more people will know what the Constitution says and also will know how the Constitution was written.
What do you think we don't know enough about our very own Constitution? Is it a form of education in terms of the schooling system? Is it an issue at home? What would you put your finger on?
I think it's a combination of things. It's hard to say that it's just one thing. I think when the Constitution was first introduced to the people and enacted, there was a lot of programming. There was a lot of reaching out to people, ensuring that they understood what the Constitution is and what it provides for. You know, the first time pocketbook Constitution was at my school.
Yeah.
Today, schools don't hand out Constitution, so there's just a lack of accessibility to the Constitution, and because of that, there's a lot of ignorance around the document. And I think that if, you know, our education system does sort of incorporate the elements that are on this online exhibition that's been launched tonight, it will be a step in the right direction. And I think we use every platform, because learning today is just not through, you know, the classroom. It's through so many mediums, and we need to be creative in how we embed constitutionalism in people's everyday lives.
Yeah. Can the Constitution help bridge the socio-historical divisions here in South Africa, do you think?
Not on its own. I think it has to, you know, today is important because it's Heritage Day.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, people don't dive deep enough on Heritage Day. It's fine if you want to wear your traditional clothing and, you know, participate in other activities. But I think it's a day where we can understand our collective history as South Africans. And I think that once we have a strong foundation in terms of knowledge, people need knowledge to be able to access their rights. And not just the knowledge, you know, that is in the Constitution, but the knowledge that stems from the history of the Constitution. And I think with a combination of things, we can do a lot by bridging the gap between South Africans. And also, don't just learn about your own personal history.
Yeah.
Try and see the world through somebody else's vantage point. You know, try and learn somebody else's history. You know, I always talk about learning about Afrikaner history.
Yeah.
Me understand. It doesn't justify what the apartheid government did, but it just let me in on that psyche. So coming outside of myself and learning histories that I may not know much of is an important step in bridging the gap. And I would say the same thing, that white people also need to, you know, learn more about Black history. Someone sent me, Nomalanga Mkiza, who's a historian, sent me a very interesting article this morning about the role of women in the land dispossession wars of the 1800s. And I can't wait to read that, because the more we seek out knowledge, I think the better we will be as citizens.
Yeah. I understand that you wrote a piece in 2013 defending the inclusion of DSTEM in the national anthem. Tell us more about that.
You know, it was around the time where that decision was being criticized. And, you know, I wanted to defend that decision because I believe in the leaders who took that decision and the wisdom behind it. And for me, it highlights that ours was not, you know, a history where one power defeated the other power. I think there was one side that had the moral power, you know, and the power of the people. And then the apartheid government had the military power. And we had to negotiate out of that some kind of a country because there's a stalemate. And all of this is available on this online exhibition being launched tonight. And my thinking was, at the time, you know, I had just finished my clerkship at the Constitutional Court. Constitution Hill as a site is one that takes from history and combines with the present in order to build, you know, a creative and innovative. And I thought that was the same with the national anthem, that we've taken bits and pieces of different cultures and languages, and we've combined it just to say that with this anthem and incorporating the anthem of the oppressor, we want to redeem you as well. We want you to be included in this new South Africa, and some of your symbols will be destroyed, like the flag. There's no place in South Africa for the flag. But I thought what they were trying to do with the stem is saying that there's some room for some kind of redemption. And I thought that was such a very gracious act and a very fearless act. It's easy to reach for fear, but in that moment we decided to lead with love and grace. And I thought that, you know, that is the kind of foundation that we should be built on, one that acknowledges that there was this kind of anthem, but we can reinvent it and we can almost, you know, uplift it in a way.
Such an important perspective, interesting aspects to heritage.
I have to say, I'm not settled on that perspective.
Oh, is it?
But
okay.
It's still, I'm thinking about it. I don't think those people were fools who made that decision. There was something good there.
Yeah, no, thank you very much indeed for bringing it to the fore. We can debate it, I guess, and that's what days like this are for, in order to debate such issues. Might be controversial in some quarters, but I think it's necessary to put forward. And you were talking about, the social cohesion and living in an insular community, living in an insular bubble, one would say. It just breeds intolerance, isn't it? So knowing your rights, knowing your as per the Constitution, knowing your neighbor, knowing different cultures, fosters social cohesion. But we thank you very much indeed, Lwando, for your perspective. Be well. All right, that was a Constitutional Lawyer Lwando Xaso there, giving us her take with regards to the importance of the Constitution, and how it relates to heritage. Speaking about heritage,